Let me ask you something. What would you do if one day, in the middle of a busy street, you saw a man, dressed in a fine, expensive suit, suddenly slam on the brakes of his bright orange sports car? People around were shouting, horns were blaring, but he didn't care. Instead, he jumped out of his car, rushed over to a frail, barefoot beggar sitting quietly on the sidewalk. And in front of everyone, this wealthy man knelt down, looked at her with teary eyes, and whispered words that made the entire street stop in shock. He said, "You're my mother." And in that moment, everything changed. Now, let me tell you exactly how this unbelievable story began. The story: Daniel Foster was a man who seemed to have everything anyone could ever wish for. At just 32 years old, he was already the CEO of a booming tech company, a man at the top of his game. He owned everything: luxury cars, mansions, yachts, even private jets. His face often appeared in magazines as one of the most successful young businessmen in the country. But behind all the success and wealth, Daniel carried a secret pain, something no amount of money could take away. You see, Daniel had always known that he was adopted. And though his life looked perfect from the outside, there was always an empty space inside him, a quiet ache that never truly went away. Growing up, his adoptive parents, especially his strict and cold father, had always made it clear that his birth mother wasn't worth thinking about. Whenever Daniel would ask about her, they would say the same cruel words: "She didn't want you. She gave you up. Forget her. We gave you everything." But deep down, Daniel couldn't forget. No matter how hard he tried, the questions kept haunting him. Late at night, he'd stand in front of the mirror and ask himself, "Who do I really look like? Whose eyes are these? Whose face do I carry?" Everything changed the day his adoptive father passed away. As Daniel sorted through his father's old study, he stumbled upon something that would change his life forever: a sealed envelope, hidden at the back of a drawer, old and yellowed with time. Inside the envelope were several legal documents and a faded photograph that nearly made Daniel drop the paper from his hands. In the picture, there was a young black woman, thin, tired, but holding a newborn white baby in her arms. Beneath the photograph, in delicate handwriting, it read, "Amara Foster, 1992, birth mother of Daniel Foster." Daniel's heart pounded as he stared at the photo. Her eyes, they looked just like his. The documents told the story that had been hidden from him his entire life. His mother hadn't abandoned him. After his father had died in a tragic plane crash, she had been left alone, with nothing: no money, no support, and no way to raise a child. The court had forced her to give him up for adoption. The words on the paper were cold and final. Due to financial hardship and the death of the spouse, the biological mother consents to full legal adoption. No future claims permitted. Daniel was shattered. All his life, he had believed that he wasn't wanted, but now he realized that his mother hadn't left him out of choice. She had been young, grieving, desperate, and she had been forced to let him go. From that moment, Daniel couldn't rest. He became obsessed with finding her. He hired investigators, searched through every file he could find, but there was no trace of her anywhere. No address, no records, not even a death certificate. It was as if she had vanished from the world. He feared he was too late. But fate has a strange way of stepping in when you least expect it. One quiet autumn afternoon, Daniel had just finished a business lunch in the oldest part of the city. As he drove slowly through the narrow streets in his flashy sports car, his mind drifted once again to the photo of his mother, the face that had been burned into his heart. He sighed, staring out the window as traffic slowed ahead. And then he saw her. On the side of the street, there she was, a frail elderly woman, hunched over from years of hardship, her clothes torn and her feet bare, struggling under the weight of a large cloth sack. And somehow, Daniel knew. His heart started racing as he stared at her face. Those eyes, that quiet sadness. It was her. Without hesitation, Daniel slammed on the brakes right there in the middle of traffic, ignoring the angry drivers behind him. He jumped out of the car, not caring who was watching, and rushed toward her, his breath catching in his throat. When he reached her, he stood in front of her, trembling, unable to speak at first. Finally, with his voice breaking, he whispered, You're my mother." The old woman looked up at him, confused and afraid. "What?" she stammered, unsure if she had heard him correctly. "Please," Daniel begged softly, "tell me your name." She hesitated, then said, Almost in a whisper, Amara. Daniel's knees nearly buckled. With shaking hands, he pulled out the faded photograph he had carried with him all this time, the one that had led him to this moment, and held it out to her. "Look," he said, his voice filled with emotion. "It's you and me." Amara gasped when she saw the photo. Her eyes filled with tears, her hands flew to her mouth, and she began to sob uncontrollably right there on the street. "No, no, it can't be," she cried, her voice trembling with shock and grief. Daniel's voice grew more desperate. "I know everything now," he said. "I found the papers. I know what happened after my father died. You didn't abandon me. You were forced." Amara collapsed to her knees on the sidewalk, overwhelmed by years of pain and sorrow. Daniel knelt beside her, wrapping his arms around her as tears streamed down his face. "You didn't abandon me," he whispered softly in her ear. "You saved me. You gave me life." Through her tears, Amara reached up to touch his face, her hands trembling. "They told me I would never see you again," she wept. "I had nothing left. They forced me to sign those papers. I thought I had lost you forever." Daniel held her tighter and whispered, "You'll never be alone again. You're my mother. You always have been." By now, dozens of people had gathered around, watching this incredible scene unfold. The sight of a wealthy young man, kneeling in the street, holding a weeping beggar woman like she was the most precious person in the world. But Daniel didn't care about the crowd, the stares, or the whispers. He looked into her tearful eyes and said gently, "Please, come with me. Let me take care of you now." Amara shook her head weakly, ashamed of her ragged appearance. "I have nothing," she whispered. "I'm just a poor, broken old woman. You don't need me." But Daniel smiled through his tears and said softly, "I've had everything in this world, but I've never had my mother. That's all I've ever needed." Slowly, she allowed him to help her up and guide her into his car. It had been decades since she had sat in such comfort. Daniel immediately called his assistant and gave clear instructions. "Find the best doctors, the best care. Prepare a room for her in my home." In the weeks that followed, Amara's life changed completely. She received medical care, warm meals, soft clothes, and most importantly, a safe, loving place to call home. As she regained her strength, she and Daniel spent every evening together, sitting by the fireplace as she told him stories about the past, how she had loved his father, how her heart had shattered when she lost him, and how she had prayed every day for her son's happiness. And one quiet evening, as they sat in the soft glow of the fire, Amara looked at Daniel with tears of gratitude and said, "I never thought I would see you again. I never thought you'd forgive me." Daniel smiled, took her hand, and said gently, "There's nothing to forgive. You gave me life, and now I get to give you the life you deserve." And just like that, the woman who had once been forgotten, who had been forced to beg for food on the streets, now lived every day with dignity, love, and peace, in the home of the son who had never stopped longing for her. If this story touched your heart, don't forget to give it a thumbs up and subscribe for more emotional, powerful, and unexpected stories like this one. And tell us in the comments, where in the world are you watching from? We love hearing your stories too. Until next time, stay kind, stay curious, and keep watching.